Hello, I'm Haruka. I'm an illustrator, and I want to share my studies and growth as I learn to become a better artist. Today, I want to explore and learn from Japanese artist Kinako. Kinako, sometimes also known as Kinoboko, is an illustrator and character designer who creates original works as well as collaborative commercial works. She is most well known for her work as a character designer for Gatchaman Crowds, Bishonen Tantedan, Token Nanbu, and more recently Paradox Live. She also creates character designs for VTubers and has her own series of illustrations themed around bunny boys. In 2020, she had her first solo art exhibition in Tokyo, and her art has been featured in compilation art books such as the Pics of Vision series. What will immediately stand out first to most viewers of Kinako-san's work is her overwhelming sense of boldness and flamboyance. Her illustrations often include large and expressive poses and body language, bright and contrasting colors, and beautiful characters drawn with soft curves and elongated limbs. The work of Kinako-san is instantly recognizable among every project she has worked on, as she adds a stylish touch and classic bishonen and bishojo aesthetics. For today's study, I want to focus on the anatomy and dynamic posing of Kinako, while also studying her process. The first resource for study that I have is Kinako-san's art book Ninjin Kakeme. Published in 2021, this is a compilation book of Kinako's original characters, commercial work, fan art, and personal works. It also includes an interview with Kinako-san herself, and a detailed section on how she creates her illustrations from start to finish. The beginning of the book is dedicated to her original characters, Kurobani, Shirobani, and Akabani. These illustrations are a perfect example of Kinako-san's style and philosophy when it comes to art. As stated in her interview portion at the latter end of the book, she values plumpness of the characters' limbs and bodies in her artwork. She also likes to add flowy hair and fabric to her illustrations to add movement. This brings us to the first important aspect of her works, the line of action. The line of action is a guideline that usually follows the spine and one or two limbs of the character. This line of action is crucial to establishing the core movement of a drawing. Lines of action generally follow two shapes, a C curve or an S curve. To most effectively study, I have a pencil and a piece of tracing paper. I will first identify this illustration's line of action. I will then block in the simple shapes of the figure to create a rough mannequin. It's important to not only pay attention to the line of action, but what parts of the body strategically diverge from the line of action to create contrast. While tracing over some of Kinako-san's lines, I will pay special attention to the curves of the limbs to create her signature plumpness. From an anatomical standpoint, this plumpness has to do with the distribution of body fat to create an aesthetically pleasing softness. The soft curves of the characters' bodies are created by connecting the more thin parts of the body, such as the wrists, ankles, and waist, with the more fatty parts, such as the forearms, thighs, and calves. While we study a few more illustrations within the book, I think it is also important to point out smaller stylistic flares that help compile the Kinako art style. These can be easily collected by observing each drawing and reading the interviews and artist notes. For example, her characters usually have diamond-shaped shadows or highlights on their noses. When it comes to drawing hands, she says that she refers to her own as a guideline and is very particular about finger gestures to retain balance in the illustration. As we study each illustration, we will first draw the line of action and then block out the parts of the body. As we trace over some of Kinako-san's lines, we will also remember to identify where the different fat deposits are and understand why the body has its curves. Another stylistic choice that she likes is tucking in the eyelashes to create a more sleepy and cute expression on her characters. When studying any artist, it is important to consider their inspirations to understand their style better. Kinako-san says that she takes inspiration from Ryu Fujisaki, mangaka of Hoshin Engi. Although on the surface their art may seem dissimilar, you can tell that Kinako has adapted Fujisaki's emphasis on visual balance and composition. Now that we have completed 4 direct studies from Kinako's art book, let's review what we have and hop over to Clip Studio Paint to learn more about the digital process. As always, the first step is to create a new canvas. For our first digital study, we are going to import one of Kinako-san's illustrations to study the lining and coloring techniques. Kinako uses Clip Studio Paint Pro and a Wacom tablet to draw. Her illustrations usually take under 5 hours, and when creating her sketches, she uses minimal guidelines. This is a testament to her intuition and experience with drawing the human figure. However, we will be using guidelines for our studies. When sketching and lining, Kinako uses a dark watercolor pen. When blocking in her rough colors, she makes the background a bright color to better identify unpainted areas and uses the fill tool to add her flats. When painting the skin, she uses yellow tone colors to create high contrast, such as more yellow toned flesh and blush tones. She also likes to use light pink beige for the shadows on her character's skin. This makes for a bright contrast between red toned shading and yellow toned flats. She also likes to add lots of highlights to the skin, making the characters look cuter. When lining, she uses line weight to emphasize the curves and plumpness of the body. While coloring the clothes, she usually shades with a flat tone, but has started experimenting with adding gradients to her shading to add more depth. This effect can be shown by brushing in some darker tones within the shading. She also uses an oil paint flat brush to shade. When it comes to shading fabrics with multiple colors, she recommends using multiply layers to create a uniform shading. Kinako-san says that her favorite color combinations are blue and red, yellow and blue, black and blue, yellow and light blue, and yellow, green, and purple. This philosophy of bold contrasting colors is used to create the composition of Kinako-san's work, usually differentiating between the character and the background. Now that we have thoroughly studied Kinako-san's work, it's time to put our skills to the test. I will be creating fan art of Kinako's character Kuro Bunny for this exercise. I'm going to try and build this from the ground up, and try to incorporate what I've learned to replicate the essence of her style. I wanted to create something bold and visually striking, so I chose a pose with a lot of motion. As usual, I identified the line of action first and tried to work around it. I tried my best to create a sketch with coherent anatomy, while also adhering to Kinako's style. After finishing the mannequin, I went in to add the features, where I paid special attention to the curves. It was fun to draw Kuro Bunny's outfit, although the hardest part for me was definitely drawing the shoes. After creating a clean sketch, I went to add in the flat colors. Kinako-san's technique of changing the background to a bright color really helped me identify unpainted areas easily, so that my colors had no gaps. My favorite part of this drawing was definitely painting the skin, as I really enjoyed how much contrast the pink shading added. It made me more mindful of where to put the shadows, and challenged me to think a bit differently. As I continue to add shadows, I appreciate how Kinako colors her drawings, as it was very relaxing and stress-free. Now, as I add some final details, I'm going to wrap up this illustration so that we can start on the review. Drawing in Kinako-san's style and really studying her work helped me learn more about anatomy and posing. However, I am also surprised by how much I learned about color and composition as well. By doing this in-depth study, I was able to reignite my passion and challenge how I think about the drawing process. Originally, Kinako-san seemed like a god-tier artist whose skills were impossible to attain. But now, I see that her process is not too different from my own, and that my dreams of being a professional illustrator are in reach. I hope this also inspires you to study an artist you love, and to keep on pushing forward and learning, even if it seems hard. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Since you're here, it's time for my self-plug. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and follow my Instagram if you want to stay up to date with my art and activities. The all-in-one stop for all of my projects is my website, which has my portfolio and links to all of my social media platforms. If you want to support me, you can check out my Etsy shop, which I am constantly working hard on. I would also appreciate if you went over to my Pixiv and checked out my first one-shot manga, Wisteria. The link to read it can also be found on the front page of my website. And, as a final plug, I want to try streaming on Twitch more, so drop a follow there to get notified if I ever go live. Also, tell me if you want to see more of this series in the comments. There are so many things I want to do as an artist, so it would mean the world to me if you supported me and followed all of my activities. That's all for today. Mata ne!